Good evening and welcome to the City of Woodstock's public planning meeting. Tonight's meeting is an open public meeting as required by the Planning Act. This meeting will be live streamed to the city's YouTube channel, and a recording of the meeting will also be posted on the city's website following the meeting. An agenda of the meeting can be found on the Agendas, Meetings, and Minutes page of the city's website. This meeting is for information and discussion purposes only, and no decisions will be made this evening. Council will make a decision on these matters at the regular council meeting to be held this Thursday. If you wish to address council at that meeting, you must submit a delegation form to the city clerk no later than 2 p.m. on Wednesday. A delegation form is available on the city website. If an application is denied, only the applicant or the minister may file an appeal with the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of issuance of the notice of council's decision. Only specified persons, public bodies, registered owners of land to which the plan may apply, the requester to amend the plan, and the minister may appeal the decision of the City of Woodstock to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of issuance of the notice of council's decision. Excluding the minister, any party wishing to make an appeal must make written or oral submissions to council at a public meeting. Please note that third parties, anyone who is not a specified person or public body, do not have the right to appeal a decision for an official plan amendment to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Please keep your comments to planning matters only and avoid repeating comments that have already been expressed. If you have not provided oral or written comments but wish to receive formal notice of council's decision on the matter, please contact the clerk's department. The notice will provide further information on appealing the decision. The planner will be asked to present the planning report for each application. The applicant will then be provided an opportunity to make comments, followed by those wishing to speak in favor of the application, and then followed by those wishing to speak in opposition to the application. Prior to proceeding with the first application, does anyone wish to declare a pecuniary interest on any items that are on tonight's agenda? And I'm seeing none, so we will go ahead. So beginning with B24-50-8 and 824-15-8, application for consent and minor variance, Wolf King Investments, Inc. And I will ask the planner, Mr. Miller, to go ahead. Thank you.
So good evening, council, staff and members of the public. As the chair mentioned, application for consent and minor variance B2458 and A2415-8 in the name of Wolf King Investments. The application for consent is proposing to sever vacant lands to permit the construction of a semi-detached dwelling on two separately conveyable lots. The application for minor variance proposes relief from section 7.2, table 7.2 in the R2 zone provisions to reduce the minimum required lot area for lot to be retained from 290 square meters to 274 square meters, to reduce the minimum required lot area for the lands to be severed from 290 meters to 276 square meters. Through the commenting process, the city's building department has also identified the requirement for additional variances, including a relief from section 7.2, table 7.2, R2 zone provisions to reduce the minimum required lot frontage for the lands to be severed and retained from 9 meters to 8.9 meters, and relief from section 5.2.2 to reduce the established building line from 7.75 to 7.7 meters. The subject lands are described as Lot 22, west side of Norwich Avenue, Plan 189, as in 470905, and are municipally known as 31 Cronin Street. The subject lands are designated low density residential in the county's official plan and are zoned R2 in the city's zoning bylaw. The minimum lot area provisions of the bylaw are intended to ensure that lots have sufficient area to accommodate an adequate building envelope that maintains sufficient setbacks and provides space for amenities and drainage. The minimum lot frontage requirements of the bylaw are intended to ensure that lots are wide enough to accommodate an adequate building envelope that maintains sufficient setbacks and lot area for off-street parking. The established building line provisions are intended to provide a streetscape with the consistent setbacks in established communities. In consideration of the requested minor variances to lot frontage, staff have reviewed the proposal in the context of the policies contained in the official plan and are of the opinion that the proposed variances are appropriate as they provide adequately sized lots to provide sufficient setbacks from neighboring properties. Staff are satisfied that the reduced lot areas and lot frontages are minorable and desirable for development, and the land maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw with respect to the provision for adequately precise building envelopes and setbacks. As far as the established street line goes, it's a very minor deviation. It's 0.05 meters. It's not a variance that this committee can provide with the severance, or that council can provide with it. It's something that would have to come as a separate application outside of one that's also going to land division. Because it's 0.005 meters, through more detailed drawings or even perhaps alternate building designs, the applicant might not need to apply for that setback as desired, but as it is now, it is something that's required. It's not something that can be considered with this application that has to go to land division though. Other than that, as it applies, staff are recommending that the City of Woodstock Council advise Land Division Committee that the city supports the application submitted by Wolf King Investments. And further, it is recommended the City of Woodstock Council advise Land Division Committee that it supports the proposal to sever the subject lands subject to 6 conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Are there any questions from members of council? Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Mr. Miller. Over the weekend, doing some homework on this, and I'm reading, and I assume the properties were empty because it's listed as proposing to sever vacant lands. After doing some research this afternoon and driving by all the different locations, I see they're built already.
Yeah.
So seems we're doing this backwards.
Yes, through the chair. The application did describe them as vacant lands. So we start writing the report that way as well. When I got there, I see that it is also under construction or built.
Yeah, it's the outside is fully built.
Yes.
Is that a problem?
It's not a problem necessarily. It just means that this step is almost redundant. Is basically redundant because it's an R2 zone, so it permitted to build a semi with it. Because it was declared as vacant, it had to come to you first. The fact that it was vacant probably doesn't have to come to you first.
If I can continue.
Yeah.
So as it is right now, it's one full lot,
That's right.
and what they've built is legal, let's say that passes. So conforming, thank you, that's the word I'm looking for. So conforming. So what we're looking at really then is just a division to 2 separate lots.
That's right.
More so than,
To make each semi-detached unit separately conveyable.
Right.
So in the R2 zone, you can build a semi-detached
Right.
unit. Those would be in common ownership, so you couldn't sell one unit or the other. This severance is to make
Right.
each unit separately
Individual.
sellable. Yes.
saleable or, okay, thank you.
Any other questions from members of council? Counselor Schadenberg?
Yeah, likely just a comment. First of all, from the chair through to Mr. Miller. I want to sort of compliment the mayor on how he described the current situation on Cronin Street the way it was. The one thing I noticed on the report that really stuck out for me is the approval of the minor variance would not create an undesirable precedent. So it's kind of a double negative, comes out to be a positive, but you can certainly look at the lot lines and sort of say that that is not an unreasonable request.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. I'll now call on the applicant or the representative of the applicant to step forward. And I don't see anyone here, so I will now ask if anyone would like to speak in favor of this application to come forward. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak against this application to step forward? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next one. So the next one is ZN 8-24-20, application for zone change 109999709, Canada Inc. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
So application for zone change ZN 8 2420, the name of 10999 Canada Inc. The purpose of the application for zone change is to rezone the subject lands from R225 to C311 to permit an additional 4 dwelling units to a converted dwelling containing 3 units to permit a total of 7 dwelling units. The applicants are requesting a special provision to permit alternative zone provisions, including a new minimum lot area per dwelling unit, minimum lot frontage, minimum interior side yard, minimum landscaped open space, minimum landscaped open space and amenity space, and minimum setback for parking areas. The subject property is described as Part Lot 2, east side of DeLater Street, Plan 10, as in 397795, and are municipally known as 18 and 20 DeLater Street. The subject lands are designated entrepreneurial district within the central area in the county's official plan, are currently zoned R225, and are requested to be zoned C311. Specifically, the special provision is requested to reduce the minimum lot area per dwelling unit from 150 square meters per dwelling to 141 square meters per dwelling, to reduce the minimum required lot frontage from 20 meters to 16.8 meters, to reduce the minimum required interior side yard width from 3 meters to 1 meters, to reduce the minimum required landscaped open space from 35% to 32%, to reduce the minimum required amenity space from 30 square meters per dwelling unit to 15 square meters, and to reduce the minimum setback of a parking area from an interior side lot line from 1.5 meters to nil. The subject lands currently contain a 3 dwelling unit converted dwelling and a large accessory structure. The applicant is proposing in addition to accommodate 4 additional dwelling units and the relocation of the existing accessory structure. The subject lands are designated entrepreneurial district according to the City of Woodstock's Central Area Development Plan, as contained in the county's official plan. Permitted uses in the entrepreneurial district designation include residential uses, including single detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, townhouses, low-rise apartments. Commercial uses including office conversions, personal services, business supplies and services, repair and service shops for small appliances, as well as business uses including cottage industries, fabrication and assembly uses, and indoor storage wholly within enclosed buildings. The entrepreneurial district is further located within the city's central area and generally forms the outer ring of the city's downtown. The central area permits residential intensification where it complies with the policies pertaining to density, form, and scale of the residential development being proposed. The central area is the most intensive and functionally diverse area of the city and serves as the primary business, cultural, and administrative center in the county, as well as a key residential intensification area. The subject lands are currently zoned R225. In addition to the R2 uses, the R225 zone permits a 3-unit converted dwelling house and recognizes the setbacks of the existing structures and size of the existing accessory structure. The application seeks to rezone from R225 to C311 to permit 4 additional dwelling units for a total of 7 units. The C3 zone permits nearly 24 non-residential uses in addition to a dwelling unit in a portion of a non-residential building, a home occupation, any residential use permitted in the R2 zone, and any residential use permitted in the R3 zone. In this instance, the R3 zone provisions apply to the proposed use. The R3 zone permits an apartment dwelling house, a bed and breakfast, a boarding or lodging house, a converted dwelling house, a group home type 1, a home occupation, a horizontally attached dwelling house, a multiple attached dwelling house, a retirement home, and a street row dwelling house. The additional dwelling units would create a development that is considered a multiple attached dwelling house as defined in the city's zoning bylaw. At the time of writing this report, so this is straight from the report, 2 emails were received from the public. The first email is attached as plate 4, and the second email requested to reiterate the concerns of the first email. In response to that letter of concern, the applicant has responded to maintenance of the, In response to the letter of concern, the applicant responded to address the neighbor's concerns. The letter of concern identified issues relating to the existing maintenance of the property, uncollected garbage, poor behavior of existing residents, and a potential encampment of unhoused people. In response, the applicant has provided a letter to staff that recognized the poor maintenance under previous management and has indicated that a new manager has been hired. The applicant recognized the issues with the tenants that the owner has been working through. The applicant has recognized the existence of an encampment and has contacted Woodstock Police Service regarding the encampment. We're running out of words today. In addition to those letters, since then, I've also received a few calls from the members of the public who expressed similar concerns. I told them it was too late for me to include something. If they wanted me to send an email, I could have it sent out to you today. I didn't get an email, but I invited them to come here and let them know this is their opportunity to speak to council if they wanted those concerns addressed better than I could tell you, which apparently is struggling for me to talk today. We received those letters. They're attached as plates 4 and 5, which is the original email as well as the response to that email. Through this application, the applicant proposes an addition to the rear of the existing residential building to accommodate the 4 extra dwelling units and proposes to relocate the existing accessory structure on the property to accommodate the additional required parking. The applicants intend to retain the accessory structure for storage space for the residents and storage of maintenance equipment. With regard to the zone provisions to reduce the lot frontage, side yard width, and parking setback, these features currently exist on site with the existing structures, and with the exception of the parking area setback, have been previously recognized in the current R225 zoning. The proposed addition or relocation of the accessory structure will not further reduce the zone provisions associated with the existing structure. Lot frontage provisions are intended to ensure that sufficient space is provided for a building envelope, access, and off-street parking. Side yard width provisions are intended to ensure that adequate space is provided for access and normal maintenance of structures. Parking area setbacks are intended to ensure that adequate space is provided for parking and that vehicles do not trespass onto adjacent properties when parking. Provided the long-term existence of these uses, staff do not anticipate a negative impact from the alternative zone provisions requested. Resulting from the proposed addition and increase in dwelling units, the applicants have also requested alternative zone provisions with respect to lot area per dwelling unit, landscaped open space, and amenity space. These provisions are intended to ensure that sufficient space is provided for amenities, outdoor space, and space for drainage. The applicants have requested a minimum lot area of 141 square meters from 150 square meters. A minimum required landscaped open space from 35% to 32%, and reduced minimum required amenity space from 30 square meters per dwelling unit to 15 square meters. For the most part, these are minor departures from the existing zone standard and are not anticipated to have a negative impact on the proposed development. Further, the subject lands are approximately 17 meters from the city's central area, where these provisions are significantly reduced and where the city anticipates significantly more dense development. Staff are satisfied that the proposal is consistent with the policies of the principal policy statement and meets the general intent and purpose of the official plan, respecting permitted uses and residential intensification within the entrepreneurial district designation, and can be given favorable consideration. As such, staff recommend that the city council approve the application ZN 8-2420.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Are there any questions from members of council? Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Mr. Miller. First off, the accessory structure that's going to be moved, it does look like there's space, but nowhere did I see what that structure is. Is it a garage? Is it more living space? What, just general storage? What is that?
Through the chair, it's a larger garage type structure. At least that's what it appears to me as. I think it's currently used by the residents for their hobbies and storage and things like that. The applicant needs to relocate it to provide the required parking,
Yeah.
but they would like to retain it for storage of maintenance equipment for the property as well as storage for the residents.
May I continue? Yeah, thank you. Okay, I guess the fear is just to make it more dwelling, people living inside. Of course, we hear of fears and some people camping out there already, so they're not inside that structure, then I assume they're outside of the structure?
Through the chair, I guess I don't know how it's used if people are living in it now. It's not permitted. The zoning is written in such a way that it will not be permitted. 7 units are what is permitted. So if there are additional units in a detached accessory structure, it's not a legal use. So it is something that bylaw could address if
So
that's how it was being used.
enforceable, I
Yes.
guess, is what I'm looking
Yeah.
for. We're not looking to have more
That's
units there. Okay, and may I continue on? Okay, the other one was, I believe you said hundred and 41 square meters. That's per unit. So that's like 1,517 square feet. So that's a decent size apartment then.
Through the chair. So that's the landscaped open space per unit. So each dwelling unit is required to have that space
Oh,
outside on the yard.
outside of,
Yes.
okay, that's where I'm missing it. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Counselor Shanberg?
Thanks from the chair through to Mr. Miller. I guess my first question being is the fourplex addition, is that going to be 3 levels plus a basement or 3 levels in total? By looking at the elevation picture that was supplied.
Through the chair, I don't believe that there will be dwelling units in the basement. That question is probably the applicant's agent is here, who can probably answer those questions better than I can. So I'll maybe leave it to them to tell you how to do it. My level of detail is concerned with the number of units and how those spaces work out.
And maybe just one more question, maybe unrelated to this specific lot, but the attached lot. It would almost appear to me that the Shoppers Drug Mart lot encroaches on this subject property as far as their setbacks go. And I always think of that because of fire regulations and whatnot, how far buildings are apart from each other. Is that the case, or is that just sort of misleading by the pictures?
Through the chair, definitely our GIS is not a survey. It's off. Sometimes it's really accurate and sometimes it's really not accurate. So where that actual line falls and how far Shoppers Drug Mart is away from it, we'd likely have a site plan on Shoppers Drug Mart that shows how far away from it is, but those are definitely not survey accurate lines.
Any further questions for the planner? Mayor Accioni?
Yeah, thank you. Through chair, along with Councillor Schanberg then, I'm assuming the site plan and everything else will address those measurements and confirm and everything else before it's actually moved, that structure is moved?
So through the chair, there's one of the changes that Doug Ford made is that when we approve residential developments that are less than 10 units, which this is, it doesn't go through site plan. So those details will be looked at through the building department and their ability to issue a permit based on the dimensions and setbacks we've included in the bylaw.
Okay, then maybe I'll put this over to Craig. Is this something that is checked? I think that's valid with Shoppers, and if people are using it as a hobby space and everything else, is that something we would go and check with the building permits and everything else?
Madam
If I may,
Chair,
yeah.
through to the mayor's question, yes, any type of this size of building, permit application requires a site plan and a grading plan, so yes, that would be checked by building staff.
Okay, I was just being an accessory structure, just being moved. I wasn't exactly sure how that would go. I would assume the fourplex would be fully, but okay, thank you.
Any further questions for the planner? Seeing none. I will now call up the applicant or the representative on behalf of the applicant. If you could just state your name and address, please.
My personal address. Good evening. My name is Nathan Seaman of VS Design Studio. Our business address is 5 Graham Street, Dundas, 5 Graham Street in Woodstock. To begin, I wanted to address the councilor's question. Yes, there will be a basement unit in the new portion. Part of the existing building has a basement unit in it, part of it does not. We aren't sure what size the units will be as we're kind of in the preliminary stages of figuring out floor plans and floor layouts. So part of the existing building will be renovated as well. I don't have too much to add to Justin's presentation, but I did want to address the neighbors' concerns. So obviously we've taken some time reading through the letter, and then owner has responded. So essentially this proposed development will change a lot on the site, and it will include renovations to the existing building. So a lot of the property will be cleaned up. All of these concerns are kind of addressed through that, and it's basically a chance to start fresh on the property. In addition to that, the property owner has hired a new property management firm, which intends to do a much better job as the owner does echo the concerns raised. I don't have much more than that. I think Justin covered everything else.
Are there any questions from members of council? Mayor Accioni?
Thank you. I feel like a pain tonight. Thank you through you, Chair. To Mr. Seaman, thank you for being here and being willing to answer our questions. I do have a lot of concerns, obviously, with building. You've heard that. You've heard some neighbors. So when you mention renovations being made in the current building, does that mean tenants will have to move out?
I believe that's the.
What's all, yeah, all three, sorry.
I believe that's the case, yes. I'm not sure exactly how many will have to, but he is planning on improving the existing building. Obviously, you know, there's people in there who have mental health issues and addiction issues, as mentioned. So he wants to clean up the spaces that they've made a mess of, essentially.
So if I can continue on with that, are they gonna have first right to move into the new property then?
That I don't know, but I can get an answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Wismer Van Meer?
Through the chair, I looked through the report and I didn't see it, and so I apologize if it is in there. How long has he, or how long have they owned this property now, compared to the previous owners? Is this a fairly new change of hands, or has this been some time? I'm just curious to how long this window could possibly, I'm not looking for exact dates, but maybe just a rough estimate if you do have that.
I don't know for sure the exact amount of time, but I believe it's in the last 5 years or so.
So through to the representative, I was curious how long the property manager of the property had been the property manager before they've been replaced with a new property manager, if you had.
I don't know for sure because I can't remember the exact amount of time that he's had the property. However, the property manager was just replaced this year.
Any further questions for the representative from members of council? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'll just remind the public that now I'm going to call up anyone in favor of this application, that you can step forward and state your name. Seeing none. Anyone against this application is welcome to step forward and state your name and address. Yep, go ahead. And again, just your name and address, please.
Sarah Swartz, and my address is 18 Delater Rear Entrance. So I guess I am in disfavor because like this is really big news to us, like that I'm going to have to leave my property now. Like my heart is racing. Like for everything we've had to go through with the property, with like water running down the walls and just it goes on and on and on. I'm very disheartened right now, and I'm very, very upset. So that's I'm not sure what else to say at the moment, but I'm very upset at the moment. So thank you.
I'll just have you hold on. You said your name was Sarah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any questions for Sarah, Mayor Accioni?
Yeah, thank you through you, Chair, to Ms. Swartz. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming and letting us know. I'm curious how long you've lived there.
I've lived there for over a year now.
Okay, so a little
Over a
while.
year. So this is really gonna be hard for us to find a new place and relocate, cause like we're still in a housing crisis, right?
Mhm.
And like I'm scared, I'm petrified at this moment getting this news. So I'm like almost shaking, so.
If I can continue, have you had experience yet with the new property owners?
No, I believe they start in November?
No, they haven't
Yeah,
started yet.
so so yeah,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Sarah? Seeing none, I'll now call on anyone to step forward against the application. Opposing the application is proper language, sorry, and it just states your name and address, please.
Hello. Hi, Susan Rampersad, Rampersad. My mother, I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my mom. My mom is 91 and she'd like you to know this is past her bedtime and she was unable to come today. So 12 Delator Street. That is the home that is directly to the south of the property in question. The property, our backyard is a fence that runs all the way. We used to own the warehouse that was directly behind the property that was sold to Shoppers Drug Mart. The warehouse is now gone. So that's our house there to the south. Mayor, council members, and neighbors, good evening. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak. I am a fourth generation Woodstonian. My grandfather, Lionel Paquette, built the textile manufacturing plant E.E. Paquette and Sons with my great grandfather in the early 1900s. They built the factory across the street from their home at 12 Delator so that they could keep an eye on their business. My mom was born in the house in 1933. My grandfather owned many houses on Delator Street, which he rented and later sold. He was an entrepreneur, born in 1900. When he died in 1986, my mom and dad and I moved into the house at 12 Delator. And both of my parents ran Paquettes, working well into their 70s. They made socks for retailers all across Canada. And the business thrived and proudly employed many generations of Woodstock residents until Free Trade closed its doors in 2008. The property was sold and a developer converted the building to an apartment complex called La Résidence, housing about 41 units, I think, if my math is right. This greatly increased the density of Delator Street. Victoria School, where I played as a child, was also later sold and converted to 33 apartments, I believe. That's a lot of residential units on a small street. I am concerned about density on this street, but for the purposes of today, I'd like to focus on safety concerns. As this property at 18 Delator Street, which supposedly has 3 units, causes 100 times more chaos, more noise, more danger than the 74 units at La Résidence and Victoria School combined. What was once a quiet residential area has been shockingly disrupted. The house used to be owned by Jean and John Foster. The property was sized for a single family and then converted to a multi-unit dwelling. I believe that the owners from that time, the owners have remained consistent for much longer than 5 years. Maybe we could fact check that, but I'm trying to suggest that perhaps management is not going to correct this problem, that the owners have been the problem. I say multi-unit because I don't know how many units that there are. I have never been inside and I don't know how many people live there. I suspect it's being used as a rooming house with the amount of people that I see coming and going at all hours of the day and night. The police are called there regularly. Yesterday, the police were called there. Today, were the police called there? Okay. So just to be really clear about what we're talking about. I hear screaming, yelling, fighting all the time. Naked people running in the street, beer bottles smashing. And of course, in recent news, we have the guitar playing at all hours of the day and night. So I took a video on my Thanksgiving weekend.
I'll just ask you not to play the video and you can show us after the meeting, but if you just want to stick to your comments, we'll happily view it
Well,
after the
could I
meeting
just
though.
give you a 5-second snippet of a
I'm just gonna ask you
sound?
just to stick to your comments. I
Okay.
completely understand that there's been
Okay.
noise, but we'll just listen to your comments and then I'm happy to listen or anyone else after the meeting to your.
Sure.
Your,
Sure.
Thanks.
So from inside my bedroom, I have taken a video in which you can see loud guitar playing. You can hear loud guitar playing. My neighbor, Megan, took a video shortly before we came here today. She lives across the street. That's how loud it is, the music that we're talking about that we can hear all day and all night. Despite many noise complaints, phone calls to the police, this problem doesn't get resolved. In addition, we have the back garage, which is as big as the house itself.
constantly with people coming in and out, cars in and out, playing loud music, saws, drilling sounds, screaming, loud, angry shouting, so much so that we can't sit comfortably in our backyard. I have no idea how this huge garage is up to code and how many people are inside of it. I believe it's being rented. I don't know. It would be great if before making any decisions, we could look up police records to find out how many times the police have been called to that residence. Because I think, you know, you can listen to our anecdotal comments, but the data, I think, would confirm what we're saying. The property itself is in a horrible state of disrepair. The front lawn is completely covered in weeds that grow about 4 feet tall, with a truckload of rocks dumped there. The front porch roof does not look safe to me. There's mature-sized weed tree, a Manitoba maple, that is growing on the south side of the property, whose branches and leaves have been dangling over our roof for years. My mom, in her 90s, asked the owners when they were converting this house to apartments many years ago to have the tree branches cut back as it was damaging our property. The owners were rude. They laughed at her and did nothing. That's fine. That's their right. They can ignore that request. But I am just speaking to the type of people that are owning this property. I have no grudge to bear with the people that actually live there. My problem is with the management for a property that's not being taken care of, not doing anything to take care of the problems when they arise, and allowing problems to escalate so wildly that my neighbor recently reached out to me and let me know a few weeks ago that SWAT teams of police with guns were sent to that property. And I will add that this is in addition to the alley that flanks the other side of our home, next to the parking lot that we own, where police are present just as much. And it is so bad that police on numerous occasions have asked my mom if they can set up surveillance on our property to catch violent crimes and drug crimes in actions. So we have yelling, screaming, fighting, violence, domestic abuse, drug deals happening both sides of our home. This past weekend for Thanksgiving, everyone was awoken at about 6:30, 7 a.m. by the sounds of screaming, yelling, cursing like you would not believe. My son, sleeping in another room, called it a drugged out, nonsensical crackhead yelling. I hope that's not derogatory, but that's the picture I'm trying to paint in order to be accurate. This is not a tenant problem. It's not an individual problem. It's a global management problem. You can evict a tenant, and these owners are just going to replace one problem tenant for another. They are not discerning in whom they decide to rent their apartments to. They are not on site regularly. And when there's a problem, that problem persists and persists for years and years. And I have no choice to conclude that they don't care. This is a money venture and nothing else. We have 70+ other apartment units on this street, and all are quiet and respectful. But this property, with supposedly only 3 units, is ruining the sense of safety and calm and peace of the residents who live on DeLater. And they want to add 4 more units to this property that is badly managed. I don't know what that tells this council. I'm concerned. I am very grateful to speak on this issue. I am grateful to have it documented because I believe it's only going to get worse. I'm scared. I'm scared for my mom. She's 91. The neighbors are scared. I'm scared to go over there and ask someone to turn down their music for fear of what's going to happen and what retaliation is going to happen. I am scared that they will lash out. And the police, though they have come all the time, have not been able to stop this problem and not been able to help us feel safer. The neighbors call this property a crack house. I'm asking that you insist that the owners do something to fix this problem and show us how dedicated they are to this community, dedicated to improving this property, enforcing that only people on a lease live there, leasing to respectable individuals that have been safety and police checked, fixing the structure so that it is safe, fixing the yard so that it is presentable for at least 5 years before you even consider any amendments. Let this, I hope, be your red flag warning something even more horrific is going to happen here. And I hope that you won't let it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before you sit down, there might be some questions from members of council, and anyone from council or the mayor can meet with you after to go over whatever you wanted to
Okay.
show there. Are there any questions, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you through you, Chair, to Susan. Please tell your mom sorry we missed her tonight.
Okay.
But I hope she gets. some
She's quite a
sleep.
character. She would have loved, well, she's been here before,
I
you
think
know,
I
a
know
number,
your
yeah,
mom.
okay, yeah, I think
think I do.
everybody knows
I'm
my mom, yeah.
Pretty sure I do know her. Anyways, that's beside the point. We have to be careful here because again, you touched on a lot of things that are not planning related. And of course, we've got to look at this as from a planning perspective.
Right,
Of course, we want to see more intensification and everything else in most areas. Typically happy when a landlord, for example, is willing to do renovations and do the improvements. And you mentioned a few things that you don't think are safe. So hopefully that'll be addressed. And once our building department gets there, we get in and all those will be addressed, at least safety wise. I guess the only real question I have for you is back to that building, the accessory structure. Do you believe that's where people are living? Is that what you implied while you were talking there?
I don't know what living means, but I know that the
Staying.
property is very chaotic. And there's, there's sounds of screaming, yelling, people, having a
I've
good
seen
time,
the
like in
videos.
a reasonable way, people having a good time back at that structure. And the reason why I'm highlighting things that are not related to planning is that I'm just trying to address concerns
Frustrating.
of the ownership, because in my opinion, the way things have been handled in the past are the way that things are going to be handled in the future. And I don't think renovating that property and adding more units is going to make this owner suddenly care more about the residents that live there, suddenly care more about police presence and violence and drug. I mean, I'm describing cars that are coming back to that garage selling drugs. That's what I think is happening back there. Cars in, cars out, cars in, cars out. Whether someone is living there or not, I haven't seen sleeping bags, like, I don't know, but I can say that there's ongoing action all the time.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lauder?
Thank you, through the chair, to the speaker. When did you think that the new manager took over, or do you think that they haven't taken over? Has there been any change if you thought it?
Well, the videos that I have are from today. So I don't think I mean, I can't read a person's mind, but I can only say that my interactions with the owner and my mom's interactions with this individual wasn't that nice. And maybe he's trying to hire a new management to appease people, but I have no faith that a new manager is going to do anything super helpful or super different, right? And are we going to build a structure before we have that guarantee? I would just like a few years of peace in that neighborhood to show that maybe the owner has turned a new leaf. But because to me, this just seems like a rooming house with a bunch of people living in it, and he's taking as much money as he can. I mean, that's what it seems like to me. So I don't know of any new management. That's a surprise to me because the behavior has continued up until present day as of an hour ago when I left. So I'm not seeing evidence of big change and improvements there.
Any further questions from council? Seeing none? Thank you very much for stepping
Can I
forward.
just add
Yeah.
one more thing? I'm not that with it when it comes to words like setbacks. I don't understand exactly where this property, and I know you haven't formalized a complete plan yet, but just keep in mind that you're now going to extend that property all the way back to the garage, that whole line. I mean, you can see from the picture where where our house ends, which is very close to the fence, which is where that red line is. So I'm not in favor of any movement closer to that line. And obviously now it's a whole apartment with windows that are now overlooking our backyard. Like this is not going to be great for our family. That's all I would say about that. Okay, thank you.
I'll now call on anyone else that would like to step forward against this application. And if you can just state your name and address, please.
It's Ruth Schwartz, Ruth Schwartz, 18 to Later Street rear entrance. And yeah, I think that on this property, there's 4 apartments. And I think there's a lot of people that have mental disorders. And people just aren't understanding, right, how to deal with them, right? So they just judge them, right? Some of these people there. But at the side of us, of our house, there is some people that like, I don't know, they're just on drugs or something, I'm not sure, right? Like, and they got people in and going in and out of the house at the side. So I don't even know if it's a legal apartment at the side. In the back, there's a garage, and I don't know if those people are drug dealing in the back or not, kind of, but they just got cars, they're fixing cars in the back, so. But I'm just disappointed that we've been there for over a year, me and my daughter. And I'm disappointed that this is happening all of a sudden, because that's why we moved from our other place, because we thought we were safe here in this place, but yeah, the landlord doesn't do nothing around there. There's mold in the basement, there's rats in there, there's cockroaches in our house. It's just like, you know what I mean, to try to do something about it. He doesn't want to replace wash machines, dryers, anything and everything. It's just, I don't know if it's black mold. We see black mold in the top floor too, right? So I don't know. Now I'm having breathing problems and stuff like that in the house, so I don't know if it's from the mold. We should have called the health board, I guess, probably for the place. The whole place should be tore down. I believe it should be tore down. And I think people that live there should have the right, they're scaring people out of there. That's what they're doing. They're scaring people are moving, like a lot of people. They're scaring people out of there. So I think you should have the right to move back in there if you've been there for a while. So yeah, you just got to understand people, there's a lot of people that are homeless. They're going in and out of the side of our house there, that apartment at the side. And so what are you going to do, right? They're in and out, in and out. So I don't know what's going on over there, right? And then there is police around. There's a lot of noise around. My daughter's boyfriend, he has a mental disorder. I know he does. And there's not much you can do, right? Sometimes you have to calm him down. I don't know what kind of mental disorder it is. So, and then the guy in the front, you know what I mean? These are handicapped people. And none of these people on that street seem to respect these people just because they have a disability. A disability should be respected, right? A little bit, eh? So they don't understand. So they're afraid because they think these homeless people are coming after them. They're dangerous, these people. They're not. They're not dangerous. So that's all I have to say. I just think they should check the house out though. There's mold, definitely mold and rats in there, cockroaches in there. We got like centipedes in there. Flooding is coming up from the floor. You'll have to tear all that property down, I believe. Water's coming in the side, right? Like it's just, I don't know. It doesn't feel like a safe environment. The landlord doesn't want to do nothing. Those people around the side, the garbage is always out there and stuff. They don't want to pick their garbage up. And I don't even think they're paying their rent, the people next door to us. So I don't know. I'm just spilling it all out for you.
Well, thank you very much
Yeah.
for stepping forward. And before you leave,
Yeah, sure.
questions, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor?
Thank you through the
Yeah.
chair to Ruth.
Yeah.
Again, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming
Just
forward.
being honest.
You mentioned 4 apartments.
Yeah.
Not 3.
Mhm.
So there is 4 in
There's
the
4, but the
building
one
in
is an
itself.
office. It's an office. So they're living in an office back there. So I don't know. It's a very small place. There's nowhere to put even a bed hardly. There's a shower in there. There's a kitchen in there a little. It's so small. I don't even know how you're paying. $800 a month the guy was paying. He stopped paying rent. Why would, well, like, holy, that's a lot of money, huh? $800 and you have to sleep on the floor? I don't even know how it's legit or is legal to rent that out to somebody.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
Any further questions from members of council? Seeing none, thank you again for stepping forward.
Okay.
Would anyone else like to step forward to speak against the application? And if you can state your name and address, please.
Hey, Megan, right? I live at 21 DeLater, the upper unit, and I've been watching this, what I can only say is a gong show for probably the last 3 years. Between the buildings in the Pocket Sock Factory, the apartments in the Pocket Sock Factory, the apartments in the schoolhouse. There's also a 4-plex at 42 DeLater, and my home is also a 2-unit, like a duplex. And I haven't seen any care from the management company regarding anything. When the front unit guy, Michael, was having what I can only say a psychotic episode for probably a good 6 months. They did absolutely nothing. They watched all of the other tenants that were living in the home leave. And these were good, hardworking, friendly people that didn't want to leave, but the management company was not doing anything about it. The entire street cares about, they care about Michael. His name's Michael, we all know him. We all care about him. And to see that they were doing nothing to help him, and now that he is doing better, what is gonna happen? What's gonna happen to Michael? Where's he gonna live? Where's he gonna afford to live? Where are all you guys gonna afford to live? When they rent evict all these people? I helped Michael clean out some of his apartment after he became more regulated and was able to get on some steady medication with the help of his father and friendly neighbors coming in to help him. His apartment, I can only describe to you, looked like a trailer that had been abandoned somewhere in the Appalachian Mountains for many years. There was mold. There was not proper plumbing working. I don't think he could actually bathe in the bathtub because I'd actually seen him bathing in the downspout in the driveway one summer day. That tells me that this management company, or whoever it is, was not in any of the units to address what was actually going on. So now I'm hearing there's 4 units in this house where there's supposed to be only 3. And they also, the 2-unit giant garage in the back was also being rented to 2 separate individuals doing their own under the table car mechanics 24/7. That on top of the drug dealing, the SWAT team, the police activity, all hours of the day and night. Not a day would go by where I'm right across the street was not disrupted by the lack of care and due diligence by whoever this management company may or may not be. They don't care. They don't care about Woodstock. They don't care about Delater Street. They don't care that we do not need 7 more units on an already heavily condensed street. Traffic's going too fast. It's not safe for kids. There's a school nearby. The noise was so insane coming from that house one summer. There was a single mom and her daughter living right next door on the other side of the laneway. It was so bad, her daughter was having panic attacks and she was scared to come into her house. She was scared to go out of her house. I took it upon myself to transplant some tall growing grass along the driveway so at least they could have some privacy from the constant yelling, screaming, and police activity going on 24/7. I'm sick and tired of it. I want to live in peace. I want Delater Street to be the nice street that it used to be. But 7 units? Like, they can't even manage 3 units. They can't even manage the house upkeep. The house is full of black mold. The house is not safe. The house is scary. It is not healthy to live in. So, I don't know. You guys are gonna vote however you guys all want to vote. Does Ontario need more housing? Yes. Is there a housing crisis? Yes. But there's not a housing crisis on Delater Street. There's too many people on Delater Street with not enough parking, not enough infrastructure, and we can't even have speed bumps. There's garbage all over the place. Like, that's all I have to say. So ask me some questions.
Thank
I'm
you very
very
much.
mad. Sorry, I'm very mad.
That's
This has been
okay.
years of this.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Thank you very much for coming forward, Megan. Are there any questions for Megan? Mayor Accioni?
Yeah, through you, Chair, and it's not really a question. I just want to say thank you for coming here tonight.
Yeah.
And
well, I've been complaining about this
we know,
for
yeah,
3 years, and the opportunity to be actually heard by people that, God willing, can stop the insanity on Delater Street, it'd be great. And there's also 5 townhouses behind the schoolhouse with the 33 units, with plans to build 5 or 10 more townhouses. So it's too busy. Like, I can't even walk my dog and cross the street safely. Like, everybody's racing.
Counselor Lauder?
Thank you. Through the chair to the speaker. Um, I agree with you on the parking because when we had to I reroute to go up to Sally Creek where I live, the traffic there and the narrow and they're parking along the streets all along there.
Mhm.
And the traffic's coming both ways because that's where we were diverted, some of us to there. So I truly agree and I'm all about this parking issue on the streets. So I agree with you there.
Mhm.
So thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Are there any further questions for Megan?
And the people were living behind the garage. The homeless people, they had an encampment there behind the
Mhm.
garage for probably a year.
Thank you. So I'll just let everyone know that no decisions are made tonight. That will be Thursday evening. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward to speak against this application? Seeing none. Again, thank you very much, everyone that came to speak tonight. We will move on to the last application. That is OP 24-09-8 and ZN 8-24-17, applications for official plan amendment and zone change, Senjik. Hopefully I am saying that correctly. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Good evening. I've heard Amir say his name many times and I still can't get it, so we're both gonna say Sanjik and he's gonna say it right probably. So applications for official plan amendment and zone change, OP 24-09-8 and ZN 8-24-17. The official plan amendment proposes to redesignate the subject property from low-density residential to medium-density residential to facilitate the development of a 5-unit multiple attached dwelling. The zone change application proposes to rezone the subject lands from residential zone 2 to special residential zone 3 to permit the multiple attached dwelling with special provisions to address lot area per unit, lot frontage, rear yard depth, minimum required parking, corner lot site triangle, location of parking areas, and setbacks for parking areas. The subject lands are described as Part Lot 30, east side of Victoria Street, Plan 212, Part 1, 41R 3014, and are municipally known as 570 Walter Street. The subject lands are currently designated low-density residential in the county's official plan and are proposed to be redesignated to medium-density residential. The subject lands are currently designated R2 in the city's zoning bylaw and are proposed to be rezoned to R3 special. The subject lands comprise an area of approximately 730 square meters and contain an existing duplex. The existing building is proposed to be added onto the west of the onto the west to facilitate the renovation of the existing building to become a 5-unit multiple attached dwelling. The subject lands are designated low-density residential according to the City of Woodstock's residential density plan. The application for official plan amendment proposes to redesignate the lands to medium-density residential development. The maximum net density for individual developments in the low-density residential district is 30 units per hectare, and no building shall exceed 3 stories in elevation. Medium-density residential areas are primarily developed or planned for low-profile, multiple-unit developments that exceed densities established for low-density residential districts. These districts are intended to include townhouses, converted dwellings, and apartment buildings. The maximum net residential density for medium districts is 70 units per hectare, and no building shall exceed 4 stories in height at street elevation. The proposed development at 8 units would have a net residential density of approximately 60 units per hectare. The subject lands are currently zoned R2, and the applicant proposes rezone lands to special R3 to facilitate the 5-unit multiple attached dwelling. The R3 zone requires a minimum lot area of 150 square meters per unit, a lot frontage of 20 meters, a maximum lot coverage of 40%, front yard depth of 6 meters, a rear yard depth of 7.5 meters, an interior side yard width of 3 meters, an exterior side yard width of 6 meters, and a minimum 35% landscaped open space and a minimum amenities area of 30 meters squared per dwelling unit. The proposed multiple attached dwelling building appears to meet the zone provisions except for the minimum lot area per dwelling unit, lot frontage, rear yard depth, minimum required parking, corner lot site triangle, location of parking areas, and setbacks for parking areas. The applicant has requested a minimum lot area of 144 square meters, a minimum lot frontage of 18 meters, a minimum rear yard depth of 4.2 meters, and the associated with the parking configuration, the applicant has requested one parking space within a required site triangle and a reduction of required parking from 1.5 spaces to 1 space per dwelling unit. A setback of parking from an interior lot line from 1.5 meters to 1.2 meters, and a setback from parking from the street line from 1.5 meters to 0.5 meters. Further, city building staff have identified that a proposed deck and step potentially encroach onto the right-of-way in the exterior side yard. A reduction of permitted projections into required yards is required to reduce the minimum setback from 2 meters to nil. The proposal is generally consistent with the official plan policies respecting the designation of additional medium density site areas. The subject lands are located between Wellington Street and Parkinson Road, which are arterial roads. And the addition of 3 units are not anticipated to impact traffic in any adjoining low density residential areas. The subject lands are directly adjacent to Southside Park, including an entrance to Southside Park, and are approximately 400 meters from 2 large schools. Although the site is generally surrounded by lands that are designated for low-density residential uses, the area is punctuated by several pockets of lands that have already been designated and built for medium-density residential uses. With respect to the proposed zoning amendment, planning staff are supportive of the applicant's request to establish alternative zone provisions for lot area per dwelling unit, lot frontage, rear yard depth, minimum required parking, corner lot site triangle, location of parking areas, and setback for parking areas. The minimum lot frontage requirement of 20 meters in the R3 zone is established to ensure that adequate space is provided for building envelope and off-street parking. The lot exists at 18 meters and is a minor departure from the current zone provision with no negative impacts anticipated with the addition of 3 dwelling units. The minimum lot area per dwelling unit for a multiple attached dwellings is 150 square meters. And is established to ensure that sufficient space is provided for the dwelling unit, amenity space, and landscape space and parking. The applicant is proposing a minimum lot area per unit of 144 square meters and is a minor departure from the current zone provision. The subject lands are in very close proximity to Southside Park, and those amenities can also be utilized by residents of the subject lands. The minimum rear yard depth is 7.5 meters in the R3 zone for multiple attached dwelling. This provision is intended to ensure that sufficient space is provided for drainage and amenity spaces. The applicants are proposing a rear yard depth of 4.2 meters, and the proposed addition is located in this space. Due to the orientation of the subject lands, the subject lands primarily utilize the interior side yard as they would a rear yard, and approximately 6 meters of depth is provided in this location. Due to the increased interior side yard width and proximity to Southside Park, no negative impacts are anticipated from the requested 4.2 meter rear yard depth. New entrances are proposed with the conversion of the dwelling structure. The city's building department has indicated that deck stairs associated with an entrance will project into the required side yard and may project to the property line. This entrance is not associated with a proposed addition, but with the existing structure to be renovated, and the building department has indicated that they are satisfied with the projection to the property line. Site-specific zone provisions are requested related to parking, including the reduction in the minimum required parking spaces, parking in a corner lot site triangle, location of parking areas, and setbacks for parking areas. Provisions regarding parking are established to ensure that adequate parking spaces are provided, to ensure that cars do not trespass on adjacent properties when attempting to park, to ensure that vehicles can safely enter and exit the property, and to ensure that parking does not create sightline issues on abutting streets. The applicant is proposing 1 parking space per dwelling unit where 1.5 spaces are required in the R3 zone. However, the applicant has shown that each of the 5 dwelling units will be 1-bedroom units, and based on the number of bedrooms, staff are satisfied that the requested reduction in the required parking spaces. Section 5.1.3 of the zoning bylaw requires that no object higher than 2 feet, including parking of vehicles, shall be permitted within the required 7.5 meter site triangle. The applicant has shown a small portion of 1 parking space to be located in the site triangle. Due to the wider than conventional right-of-way in this area, staff have no concerns with the parking space being partially located within the site triangle. Further, section 5.4.4 of the zoning bylaw does not permit parking within a required front yard. As previously stated, the orientation of the lot means that parking in the front yard functions more like a side yard and represents the current location of the parking area with no meaningfully feasible alternative locations available. Therefore, staff do not object to the proposed location of parking in the area. Finally, the applicant has requested a setback of parking areas from an interior lot line from 1.5 meters to 1.2 meters, and a setback of parking areas from street lines from 1.5 meters to 0.5 meters. And these setbacks appear to be fairly consistent with the existing parking situation, and staff have no objection to the proposed location. This office is of the opinion that the amendment to the official plan to accommodate the proposed development of subject land generally complies with the relevant policies of the official plan, and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is appropriate and can be given favorable consideration. Therefore, staff recommend that the council of the city of Woodstock advise county council that the city supports the application to amend the zoning or the official plan, and that staff and that the city of council, that the council of the city of Woodstock approve in principle of the zone change application.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the planner? Mayor Attioni?
Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Miller. Parking, again, is my biggest concern with this location. So the question here is, with only one parking each vehicle will park in front of the unit as shown in the diagram that we were given?
That's correct. So the locations will be where they are, which is technically the front yard. But the orientation of the building makes it feel like Walter Street rather than the South Street is the actual frontage. It's even has a Walter Street address, despite the fact that the frontage, because it goes by which is the narrower, is on South Street.
Okay, and then if I can continue. Thinking of the area, thinking of parking, how busy that intersection could be with events and everything else at Southside Park. Would there opportunity to have parking in the landscaped area of this, considering they're right beside a parkland to ensure there's no overflow parking or anything else?
Through the chair, we could definitely entertain any of those issues. I think the staff preference is, because each of these are one-bedroom units, would be to reduce the required parking space just to make sure that there is some landscape space, there's some space for drainage on the site. But yes, we could definitely consider alternate proposals.
Yeah, I drove by there today and I realized there is a slant and everything to the one side yard, but maybe this will be a question to the developers. Thank you.
Councillor Schadenberg?
From the chair through to Mr. Miller, maybe this is a question for the actual developer to answer too, but on plate number 3, which is not up on the screen right now, the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those aren't parking spots, are they?
Yes.
So where specifically is the new building going? Because there's existing building and then there's
Yeah.
5
So
more
through the chair, if you look,
one-bedroom units.
you can see the north arrow. So on the west side, that bit of a block that does not have existing building written on it is where the addition is proposed. I can try and put my mouse on if it works. Right there.
And there'll be 5 apartments in there? Obviously, you mentioned before, they're all one-bedroom apartments, but quite small, I would think.
Any further questions? For the planner? Seeing none, thank you very much. And I will now ask the applicant or the representative of the applicant to step forward and state your name and address, please.
My name is Dennis Burlees. I'm at 709 505 Finkel Street, Woodstock. I'm agent for Amir Senchek. The planner has done a great job of outlining the application, and I don't feel any need to add to it. I will try and answer any questions between myself and Mr. Senchek if we can. Other than that, we'll kindly say abide. Thank you.
So first question, Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
Through the chair to, sorry, I missed your, is it
Release.
Release, sorry, I didn't want to mispronounce. I'm just looking at this diagram as well. Beside parking space number 5, there are stairs that go up and down. Do those stairs enter the entire building? So if someone, like, let's say I'm in apartment number 5, I park in my spot, I can enter in through there to get into the entire building if I lived on the far end, closer to Southside Park? Or do they have to walk around to the front and enter over where that north arrow would be?
That's a very good question. Can you answer that, Amir? You're familiar with that?
Through your chair, those stairs are basically existing stairs. Sorry about this. And they would accommodate one side of the building. The entrance that we have from the other side will accommodate the other 2 units.
So they would have to walk around the front to enter into that
Two
side?
of them,
Okay,
actually 3 of them would have to with the new unit as well.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Further questions? Mayor Accioni?
Thank you, through you, Chair. To both gentlemen, thank you for being here, of course. Again, you probably heard that. My concern is the parking. A lot of different areas, they get doubled up and then street parking becomes a concern and everything else. Just trying to look ahead. Has there been consideration of adding more parking, of looking at parking spot number 5, of course? Has there been any thoughts to adding a couple more for visitor? I'm assuming there's no visitor parking or anything else there currently.
You want to try to maintain as much open space and amenity space as possible, which is just as important as parking.
Agreed, but with consideration of Southside Park is literally
Right.
the next door neighbor, you
There's a-
certainly have a lot of space.
There is a good stretch of road on South Street as you head south that is open and available for parking. If you know what I'm talking about?
I do on the street
Right.
itself. Again,
Right.
we're trying to prevent
Some
this
additional
on-street
parking,
parking. That's the idea. If we know it's going into an area.
Yeah, I don't know how else we could add any parking. Any thoughts, Amir?
Through your chair, we massaged this a lot, and this was the best balance between keeping some open space and the number of parking. If there is a push for more, we can look at the back. I mean, it's, I don't know how do we provide access to that and how deep we can go.
My thought, just a
Yeah,
quick look, and
yeah.
again, I haven't worked on this nearly as long as you, don't get me wrong, but on the
Yeah.
back of the building, so on the south side of the existing building, if you made 2 or 3 parking spots, if you get rid of number 5 and put them behind the building itself, could you not add 2 or 3 more parking spots there? Realizing, yes, you're going into a little bit of the landscape space, so I'm not sure what the planners would think but
We
is
could look
that,
at
possibly, or I'm thinking like this, here. Right, I'm thinking.
Judging by the size of lot 5 or the parking space 5, if you take that and rotate it, you notice that there's not really enough room for both of it, for both the parking space and a laneway out. So I don't think it would really work, but we certainly will look at it.
Okay. Well, maybe if you don't mind sticking around for a couple of minutes, I wouldn't mind. Justin? Yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, and maybe Craig has an opinion on this too. I think the bylaw requires something like 6.7 meters to turn into a 90-degree parking space. So if you consider that parking space 5 is 2.7 meters wide, it doesn't look like the geometry is there.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll now call on anyone that would like to step forward who would be in favor of this application. Seeing none, I'll now call on anyone that would like to speak against the application to step forward. Favor? Okay, if you'd like to step forward and state your name and address. And we can suss out which direction we're going here.
Yeah, sorry, this was all a big shock to me. I'm Jennifer Lumlin. I live at 570 Walter Street. I'm not here to talk badly about my landlord. He's been really good. I have no complaint. This situation has been really confusing to me, to be honest. I woke up to a sign outside of my house about this meeting, so that's why I'm here today. And I walked up early in the morning, getting ready for work, and the foreman looked at me and said, "You don't want to be reading that this early in the morning," which I'm 20 years old. I live at my place by myself now. Both my parents passed away last year. I'm on my own now, and I have a neighbor, Corey, she's really awesome too. I can't complain about anything too much, but this has all been like a pretty big shock for me. I'm not too sure what's happening here. We didn't receive a letter in the mail from the city of Woodstock. I don't know if it was a mistake by any chance, but I haven't received anything. As far as I know, my neighbor hasn't received anything either. And this is kind of like, I'm kind of wanted to get to the bottom of it, but unfortunately, I haven't had the full resources. I'm just a 20-year-old. I don't really know what I'm doing fully sometimes, but we wanted to come tonight to kind of get an understanding. And the one thing we are wanting to understand is like, is this a situation where we are going to have to exit the premises, or if we are going to be staying here? And again, like there's no like bad talking. I personally have not had any issues with my landlord. He's been good. It's just something I would like some clarification on. If it is like, I have lived here for about I'm really bad at dates. So a lot of people came here planned with dates. Unfortunately, I am not that person. But I lived there with my mom and dad for about 6 or 7 years. And when they passed away, thankfully my landlord was nice enough to just adapt everything into my name, and which made things a lot simpler in my case. And I'm really confused about the situation, and I'm really sorry if this sounds uh, like ignorant. I'm not trying to be ignorant by any means. This has been a big wake up call for me. I work full time as well, so I'm not really home often. And when I saw the sign and I had a foreman tell me this at 7 o'clock in the morning, you can assume it was a pretty big wake up call for me, aka me calling my boss, bawling my eyes out, telling him what do I do. And he told me to come here today and just get some clarification. And I'm really sorry if this sounds ignorant by any means. I'm really not trying to. I am genuinely like, I'm young. I don't know what any of this means, to be honest. I understand the floor plans to some degree, but yeah, I'm
Perfect. So I'll just interrupt. No
Yeah.
problem. That's great. You're here. It's a public planning meeting, so it's for questions and for the residents to come out and have dialogue with both planning expert, building department experts, and members of council. So step one, great job. Mr. Miller, maybe I'll ask you in terms of like, what is the radius to give residents notice of a planning matter?
So the radius is, depending on type of application, 60 or 120 meters. The problem likely in your case is that we mail it out to the property owners because you're not a property owner,
Yeah.
you're a tenant, you likely wouldn't have got it. That's why we also put out the yellow public notice sign. But if you have any questions, I can give you those sorts of details.
Okay. Yeah, because actually all my neighbors received a notice from the city about this meeting. All my neighbors did. My neighbor actually copied a form for me and I was able to read some of it. And that's what had me a little bit confused. With me, like honestly, if this is like a plan where like he's planning on doing renovations, I'm all for it. I'm not going to be opposed to it. Either way, it's ultimately his property, and I do respect that, whatever he chooses to do. This is just definitely a situation where am I going to have to leave in 60 days, or are we good? Especially because like I'd like to think I've been on top of things, and unfortunately, this is a situation where it was a big shock. And obviously, there's nothing definitive yet, but there's definitely some information that I definitely want to. I feel like if I don't ask now, I'm not too sure if I will have the opportunity to talk about it.
So have you reviewed the application for tonight?
Yes, I have.
Yes, okay, and then your landlord's in-house.
Yes.
So I would strongly suggest you two connect after this
Okay.
meeting, of course, as well.
Yeah.
We can provide you with our email addresses or the planning department's email addresses as well. Was there anything after reviewing it that you had questions about in terms of structure, what it looks like, parking, kind of going off what Mr. Mayor said, anything like that?
Definitely about the parking. I kind of see where the mayor's coming from on that part. It is a very small property, or it's a big property, but it's also not, it's a big property, but it's also small. So realistically, as soon as there would be any parking, that place is gonna become so congested so quickly. I've lived there for quite some years now, and also it's gonna be so, if he's putting it up to the line, up to that, up to where there's a building, not too sure what the building is, but if it's going up all that way, then possibly that could work out, but I could see it getting congested really quickly in that area, and it is a very small property as well. That would be ultimately my only concern per se. To some degree, I think it would also help because unfortunately in that area, we do have some people who walk through, and actually last year there was beer bottles smashed, and we had to bring my dog to the vet because people throw their beer bottles out there. And so I don't have the eye for construction by any means, but if there is a way of putting parking there, that might be a good idea because I've unfortunately even seen some people sleeping out under the trees before. That has not been uncommon. Yeah, sorry for my ignorance on this situation. There's just definitely been some conversations that I've been like uncertain about.
Well, we will get you sorted after this meeting, and thank you for stepping forward. Are there any questions? Mayor Accioni?
Thank you, through you, Chair. First off, Jennifer, I'm very sorry about your parents.
Thank you.
Really sorry to hear that. Let's go back to the parking. Currently, is there any parking issues there in your opinion?
Currently, no. Because I'm the only one in my residence that has a vehicle. So there's me. I definitely believe if they had a couple of vehicles, if my neighbors had vehicles, that could have become like an issue in where we're at. But we've been me and my dad, before my dad passed, we were the only ones with vehicles, so it was a very easy placement for us. But like hypothetically speaking, someone moves in and they have a daughter and a son who have like a daughter, son, and like parents who have kids, whatever the case is, and they have a couple of vehicles that wouldn't work in where our place is at right now currently.
Yeah, well, again, in their defense, I'm sure they've given it a lot of thought, no
Yeah,
doubt. They obviously have,
absolutely.
with a 1-bedroom, unlikely to get multiple vehicles.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I can see where they're
In
coming
this
from.
case, yeah, like if it's a 1-bedroom unit and then like there is just like parking spots for one vehicle or for some vehicles, I think that would work out pretty well.
Okay, well, may I suggest along with Councillor Leatherborough to touch base, talk to your landlord, see what questions, there is no mention here about having to move out or move
Yeah.
or anything like that. So
Yeah.
the assumption is it's going to mean addition onto the side of the building, but definitely please speak to them to verify that.
Yeah.
For your own being. So thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Perfect. Thank you again. Is there anyone else that would like to step forward to speak in, we'll say opposition in the line of queue of the application? Seeing none. Okay, so that concludes tonight's meeting. A decision on these items will be made at the council meeting on Thursday. I will now look for a mover to adjourn the meeting. Councillor Wismer Van Meer, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.